Hello and welcome back to the Voloshen Law Firm. Once again, we thank you for joining us for yet another episode of Par Partners. This is our video focusing on how immigration law impacts other areas of the law and how immigration law is relevant in many aspects of your life. Today, we will talk about a very interesting and relevant topic in immigration law, which is the topic of the intersection between immigration law and criminal law involving the theft of services. This area is quite complicated, and I would like our friend and colleague Lidia Alperovich to explain to us what is theft of services, how it is pursued criminally in Pennsylvania, and if you are facing a charge of theft of services, what are the 5 tips that you or several tips that you should keep in mind if you are facing this issue? Welcome, Lidia.
Thank you for having me again, and I love the show. So again, Lidia Alperovich, theft of services. It is an interesting topic because it's probably one of the most misunderstood topics. The first thing to understand about it is theft is theft. And it's hard because you and I had a podcast about the show called Inventing Anna, where the main character was living in hotels and not paying for fake credit cards, and that's theft of services. Why is it one of the most misunderstood areas? Because we very often feel, each and every one of us, that we're entitled to a service, yet we're entitled not to pay for it. And it's very, very tempting, okay? It happens very often with, for example, contractors. Oh, this guy didn't do a good job. And it's a civil matter, okay? He didn't pave my driveway the way I wanted him to pave my driveway. I paid him part, not all of it, because he doesn't deserve it. Guess what? Okay? And it works both ways. Contractors that take your money and don't perform the work, obviously you think it's theft. He stole your money. And I actually witnessed once, waiting for my own case, a contractor where 3 homeowners got together and there was a criminal case for something that he thought purely civil. But then on the flip side, yes, you have to pay for your services. You have complaints, there are avenues to complain about it. And theft of services, because theft, as we often say, it's an escalating offense. The amount starts from very low amount. Guess what? When you don't pay for services, it's usually big amount. And all of a sudden, you're in big trouble.
One of the best examples that you and I discussed prior to going on camera is theft of services is usually the charge that's being pursued by the county or the state if, in fact, somebody sends their kids to a school district where they do not live. People do not understand very often that that is a crime. You are essentially accused of stealing the services of an education from bona fide taxpayers of that county who pay taxes to send their kids to maybe a better school district. If you drive your kid to a school district where you do not reside full time and where your child does not reside overnight, you are essentially, according to the statute, to the criminal statute in most states, including Pennsylvania, you in fact are stealing services from that county. And more often than not, we are seeing, especially after the pandemic, that school districts are pursuing these charges against families where the children go to school in a school district where they do not live.
And they're very powerful. And they're very powerful. School districts are powerful players. So yes, this is a serious thing. And again, very serious consequences immigrationally, as you
Absolutely.
can tell.
If you're charged with theft of services, it is a theft offense. It is obviously an offense of bad moral character, which will reflect negatively and impact your immigration status. It will have a grave consequences to your ability to file for naturalization, to be able to reunite with your family members, immediate or not. It will obviously set you back a lot of money for defense fees and also for fines. So, the general rule is don't do it. Before you try not to pay somebody for services that have been performed or take advantage of services which you are not sure that you're being charged for, at least have a conversation with an attorney, have a conversation with maybe a public representative. If you are hesitant or if you are doubting whether the services you're accepting or refusing to pay for are in fact something that need to be compensated for. So in conclusion, could you give our viewers maybe a few tips on what to do if they receive a complaint? Usually it's a complaint that is, or an information from the Commonwealth with regards to being, or a subpoena, with regards to being possibly charged with theft of services.
The tips in criminal case are always the same. You have several constitutional rights, and very often the Commonwealth, as an opponent, not as a victim, but as an opponent, will not necessarily tell you, you don't have to speak to us. They will say, you have to come in and speak to us. Please don't. Then speak to an attorney and start gathering the information that helps your attorney.
Like mitigating circumstances or mitigating evidence.
Or completely exonerating circumstances, whichever way may be. Don't try to navigate these cases yourself. If you don't have the means, there is an Office of Public Defender, and there's another tip, very important one, and that is an Office of Public Defender is usually the most misunderstood entity ever. They say, we want an attorney, not a public defender. There are attorneys. They're very experienced attorneys. So see if you're entitled to it. If not, you need a private attorney. Most judges will not let you go on without having an attorney, actually. So do that, and again, we always come with the same tip. Try paying for your services, but if it didn't happen, then you know you are my first call when I have a case with someone who is not a U.S. citizen. So that's another thing.
And there are some obligations that criminal defense attorneys, Lidia just alluded to this, have in terms of advising clients about immigration consequences of any kind of pleas that are accepted. And actually piggybacks on what I was going to say next, is that before, when you speak to a criminal defense attorney, if it's a criminal defense attorney who is not also an immigration lawyer, and there are a few who do both areas of the law, unless the criminal defense attorney that you're working with can advise you properly about the immigration consequences of accepting pleas and accepting factual allegations against you, please, I beg you, please contact an immigration attorney to discuss what consequences, immigration-wise, you will have if you accept a guilty plea. A guilty plea for certain charges will be an express ticket for you to be removed out of the United States. Now, those charges are few. They're usually aggravating circumstances, they're usually aggravated felonies, and usually retail theft or theft of services will not arise to that level unless it's an egregious amount. But please have a conversation with an immigration attorney and be properly advised as to what kind of consequences you will have if in fact you accept a guilty plea.
And one last thing, if you have a criminal attorney that doesn't tell you to contact immigration attorney, my advice, very simple one, run.
That's correct. And there's a Supreme Court law back from the early 2000s after the 9/11 era that talks about the fact that if a defendant is not properly advised about immigration consequences of his criminal guilty plea, that charge actually is not considered to be valid. That plea is not valid. The colloquy now of a judge has to include, a questioning of a defendant about immigration consequences of his guilty plea. So there are procedures, there are safeguards in the process that we can rely on, but some judges are more eager than others, some are lazier. So please, please, please contact an immigration attorney and have what is often a free consultation about your immigration consequences. So we thank you for your attention. We thank you for tuning in time after time. We appreciate your interest and your viewership. If you have any questions, please call our office at 215-437-7854. Lidia, could you tell our viewers your contact information?
Well, law offices of Lidia Alperovich, you can find us anywhere, absolutely. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, we are everywhere. And my number is 215-355-9105. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Until next time.